right, folks, buckle up because this one's big. Congress just pulled off something almost nobody thought they could. They actually agreed on something. Yeah, you heard that right. Both sides of the aisle came together and passed one of the most sweeping immigration reform packages in decades. Experts are already calling it a game changer, a full-on rewrite of how America deals with visas, green cards, and deportations. Basically, Washington just dropped a legal bomb that's going to shake up how millions of people live, work, and stay in this country. This new law doesn't just tweak old rules, it rebuilds the entire system from the ground up. For the first time, every non-citizen, from students to green card holders to temporary workers, is now grouped under one big enforcement category: translation. The safety net many immigrants thought they had might not be there anymore. Under the old laws, green card holders were usually safe unless they committed a serious crime. But under this new deal, even a single Dewey, yeah, one bad night, one mistake, could trigger deportation. Oh, doesn't matter if it was a misdemeanor in your state, if the feds call it a threat to public safety, you could be out. Lawmakers are spinning this as a protecting American families and a keeping our roads safe. But critics say it's way too harsh, punishing people who've worked hard, paid taxes, raised kids here for years. They argue that this law could tear families apart for one mistake that has nothing to do with someone's moral character or long-term behavior. What's even crazier? Under the new rules, you don't even need a conviction anymore. An admission of the offense, yeah, just saying you did it, can start deportation proceedings. That's got immigration lawyers and advocacy groups in full panic mode. Some call it a firm but fair. Others call it a legal landmine. Either way, this law isn't just tightening screws. It's rewriting the playbook, but this is just the beginning. In Part 2, we'll dig deeper into what this new law actually means for students, workers, and permanent residents, and why even lawful immigrants are starting to sweat. Stay tuned, it's about to get real. So here's where things get wild. For years, getting that green card was like hitting the jackpot for immigrants. Stability, freedom to work, travel, build a life here. But now, that little piece of plastic ain't the safety net it used to be. Under this new reform, green cards are no longer permanent shields. The feds now call them conditional privileges. Yeah, you heard that right. Privileges, not rights. And those privileges can vanish if you mess up under the new public safety standards. Even stuff that used to be handled at the state level, like a misdemeanor Dewey, can now be reclassified under federal law as grounds for deportation. In plain English, doesn't matter if your state gave you a slap on the wrist, Washington might still show you the door. Immigration lawyers are losing sleep over this. They say the new rule levels the playing field in the harshest way possible. No matter who you are, student, worker, permanent resident, one mistake can wipe out years of good standing. And it doesn't stop there. The law also tweaks what's known as a good moral character, the standard used when people apply for U.S. citizenship. Under the new rules, one single Dewey automatically makes you ineligible to become a citizen. No second chances, no explanations, just done. Let's break that down. A hardworking resident who's been here for 10+ years, pays taxes, raises kids, never broke another law, gets one Dewey on record. Boom! They're now blocked from naturalization. Some might even face deportation review. And guess what else? The law allows for retroactive review, meaning old cases, even ones from years back, can now be re-evaluated under this new standard. So folks who thought they were in the clear might be in for a rude awakening. Immigration attorneys from coast to coast are telling clients, don't file, don't renew, don't move a finger till you talk to a lawyer. Because this new system, it's like walking through a minefield blindfolded. But wait till you hear what's next. In Part 3, we'll uncover how this reform flips the script for students, visa workers, and even families trying to reunite. Plus how Washington plans to enforce it all. You think it's strict now? Just wait. The next part will make you rethink the whole system. Alright, so if you thought this law only hits green card holders, think again. This new immigration reform doesn't just tweak a few rules, it hits everyone. From students studying in Boston to software engineers in Silicon Valley, no one's untouched. Let's start with the first big shakeup: expanded inadmissibility. Under the New Deal, anyone with a Dewey, or even someone who admits to having one, can be labeled inadmissible. Now, that word might sound fancy, but here's what it really means. You can't enter the country, you can't renew your visa, and you can forget about becoming a citizen anytime soon. This is a total game changer. Before, immigration officers mostly focused on criminal convictions. Now it's about admitted conduct. That means even if you were never convicted in court, but you told an officer what happened, congratulations, that could still get you flagged. For international students and temporary workers, this is a nightmare. Even a minor charge or misunderstanding could mess up their entire future here. And for families waiting on sponsorships or reunification visas. The new system just made the process tougher, slower, and more nerve-wracking than ever. Here's where it gets even trickier. Federal law now overrides state law when it comes to DUI or public safety offenses. So even if your state says, hey, it's a minor thing, we'll let it slide, the feds can still say, NA, that's deportable. It's like the states are playing checkers and Washington just switched to 4D chess. And it doesn't stop there. This law hits families hard. Many permanent residents used to believe they were one step away from full security, just waiting on their citizenship paperwork. But under this reform, green cards are now officially labeled a conditional status. That means the government can yank it if you violate their new immoral or public safety standards, even after years of clean living. Immigration attorneys are calling this a quiet earthquake. Not because it's loud, but because it's shaking the entire system from underneath, changing what a safe even means for millions of lawful residents. So yeah, you might have played by the rules your whole life, but in this new system, one mistake, even one misunderstanding, could rewrite your stories, But hold on, this story isn't just about punishment. In part 4, we're digging into how this law gives Washington new power to track, flag, and deport, even without convictions. Yep. You heard that right. The feds don't need a guilty verdict anymore, just suspicion. And what's coming next will shock even the most law-abiding immigrant family. All right, let's get real for a second. When folks used to talk about deportation, it was usually tied to something major, felonies, fraud, or violent crimes. But this new immigration law, it's flipped the script completely. Now, the feds don't need a guilty verdict. They don't even need a conviction. All they need is a credible evidence that you might have done something. And they can move to deport. Sounds wild, right? But it's real. Under this new system, immigration officers can act based on records, reports, or even admissions. That means if you admitted to drinking and driving once, even if the case got dropped, that's enough to open your deportation file. Think about that. No trial, no conviction, no a day in court, just one statement, and you're suddenly on the radar. Officials say this new policy gives them a flexibility to protect communities from potential threats, but critics are calling it a constitutional gray zone, one that blurs the line between justice and profiling. It gives the government insane discretion. That's what has immigrant communities terrified. In cities like Houston, Miami, and LA, local lawyers are seeing a spike in what they call quiet removals, or media events. They're small, subtle cases, people getting picked up over old charges that were supposed to be cleared. Sometimes the person didn't even know their case was reopened, and guess what? There's no timeline anymore. Law lets immigration enforcement go back and recheck old files, even from a decade ago. That DUI you pled out years back, it can come back from the dead. That one time you told an officer, yeah, I was driving after a couple drinks, that can now be used as admitted conduct. Advocates say this gives ICE and Homeland Security almost unchecked power. And it's already happening quietly under the radar. People who've lived here 20 years, raised kids, paid taxes, followed every rule, now getting deportation letters for cases long forgotten. The biggest fear that this new authority could snowball, not just about DUI, but anything the government deems a public safety risk. Today, it's DUI. Tomorrow, it could be something as simple as a missed fine or paperwork error. It's no longer about what you did, it's about what they think you did. And that, folks, changes everything. Clapperboard rehook. But the story ain't over yet. In part 5, we'll talk about how this law's already shaking up courts, dividing politicians, and lighting social media on fire. plus what it means for the next generation of immigrants trying to call America home. Spoiler, this fight's just getting started. So here we are, the law's passed, the rules have changed, and now the country's split right down the middle. Some folks are cheering, saying, finally, Washington's doing something real about immigration. Others, they're straight up terrified. And honestly, both sides have a point. Since the reform dropped, newsrooms, talk shows, and Twitter feeds have been blowing up. You've got politicians doing victory laps, calling this the boldest immigration fix in 40 years. And then you've got immigrant families, lawyers, and community leaders saying, hold up, this isn't reform. This is fear. Across cities like New York, Chicago, and Dallas, protests have already kicked off. People are holding signs that read a one mistake shouldn't erase a life and a justice, not judgment. It's emotional, man. You can feel the tension in the air. Meanwhile, the government insists this isn't a crackdown. They're calling it a butts of accountability and opportunity. They say, if you're doing things right, you've got nothing to worry about. But tell that to the guy who got a Dewey in 2012 and just got a deportation notice last week. Even within Congress, things are getting messy. Some lawmakers who voted yes are now backpedaling, saying they didn't expect the rules to hit lawful immigrants this hard. And over at the Department of Justice, insiders are already whispering about court challenges, especially over the deportation without conviction clause. You can bet this thing's headed for a legal showdown. On social media, it's war, half the country saying, it's about time we got tough. The other half saying, we just made millions of people live in fear. And for immigrants who've built their lives here, people who work, pay taxes, raise kids, the message feels like a gut punch. You belong here until we decide you don't. But here's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. America's immigration system was broken long before this. And this new law, it might fix some parts, but it's breaking hearts in the process. Families are scared. Communities are confused. And lawyers? Oh, they're calling this the storm before the real fight. Because once the lawsuits start flying and the courts get involved, this law could either stand or fall apart piece by piece. One thing's for sure, this story's far from over. The next few months could redefine what it means to call yourself an American immigrant. So yeah, grab your popcorn. Because this ain't politics as usual anymore, it's personal. Clapperboard, and that's where we'll leave it for now, folks. If you want to stay in the loop on how this all unfolds, from the courtroom drama to real-life stories of families fighting to stay, hit that subscribe button. Because here at True Heart Stories, we don't just cover headlines, we cover humanity. Stay tuned. The next chapter of this story might just change everything. United States.